I was sent a series of videos by a fellow YouTuber, Deconverted Man. Okay.
Deconverted man.
Alright.
Deconverted man.
Okay. Anyway, OffTheKirb street preaching has made up 10 videos of questions he has for us, challenging us to answer them.
I'm going to give you 10 whole potent questions, and you need to answer each question to the best of your ability. And if you do really well and blow me away, blow my theistic mind away, well then I'll convert.
Okay, let's see what you've got. But even if I can answer all these, I doubt you would ever change your mind. You have preconceived ideas, so my stance that the evidence for any God is lacking will not convince you because you seem to believe without evidence. But let's see what we can do in answering your questions.
But on the flip side, however, if there's just one question which you cannot answer, well then you, and you must promise to do this, you need to read the whole of the Gospel of John.
Well, I already have read the Gospel of John, so it's not much of a bet. It makes some interesting claims, but that's all they are, claims. Why is it that so many Christians think our only problem is we haven't read your book? I have, but the claims in it just don't convince me.
Question number 1. Explain to me, atheists, how you've got a conscious mind which came from the unconscious.
This is what's known as the phenomena of emergence, where complexity arises out of simpler processes. Snowflakes are a good example, a complex crystalline structure based on simple rules. Basically, animals with simple minds kept having offspring whose minds over the generations became more and more complex, because a complex mind helped with survival. As our ancestors were simple tool users, a keen mind was instrumental in survival, which led to an increased understanding of ourselves and the world around us. In other words, becoming conscious.
So here's question number 2. If there is no God, then explain this to me, atheist. Why are there so many religions in the world? And why is it that every single human being, including you, has a strong desire to worship something, has a strong desire to give devotion to something?
Because people want answers, and before we had the scientific process, many gave those answers over to anthropomorphic deities. But just because we wanted an answer and came up with one doesn't mean the answers were correct. But the idea of beings creating the world was tenacious and carried on. The thought process was, we make things, the world is a thing, somebody must have made it. It's nice to think you can read my mind, but I don't have any desire to worship anything. I have chosen to give my devotion to my family, but that's because of the emotional attachment I have to them. I didn't have any feelings of missing devotion before they came into my life. There are people and things I care for, yes, but worship? No. If a God was proven to exist, I would have to admit it was real, but I don't think that would lead to blind worship. It would first have to show it was deserving of my devotion. And if there was an actual God, from what you're claiming, wouldn't it make sense there would only be one religion? Where would the others come from? And if those can be dismissed as fake, why couldn't yours?
Now, do you see this book here? This, to me, is the infallible Word of God. But do you know the question I get asked the most when I'm on the streets preaching is, it's this. Why are there so many contradictions in this book if it's infallible? So what I'd like you guys to do now is, I'd like you to, in the comment box below, write down 3 contradictions. 3 contradictions, and I'm going to do my very best to try and answer them.
That's not really a question, but you bring up an interesting idea about contradictions. Yes, there are many contradictions in the Bible, but even if they're all answered, that doesn't mean the Bible itself is correct. The Dark Tower novels have an answer to the many contradictions in them, namely, and spoiler alert here, multiple universes. You're just a psychological manifestation of my mind making sarcastic comments. If I've read them, so have you. Anyway, just because those contradictions can be answered doesn't mean the books are accurate histories and Roland actually existed. If there was a holy scripture that had no contradiction that needed to be twisted like a pretzel to be corrected, that wouldn't make it true. I could have a piece of paper that says, what's written on here is the absolute truth. It was written by God. God is always correct. Therefore, this paper is correct. Send your life savings to the bald guy with the beard making this video. It's internally consistent. There's nothing in it that contradicts itself, but I doubt very much they'll be getting any checks in the near future. If something is not internally consistent, that's a good indication that it isn't true. But that doesn't mean the inverse. If something is internally consistent, it's automatically true, holds.
Now, atheists, this is question 4 in the challenge, and this is the hardest question, which is all to do with morality. Now, if you are a consistent atheist, then you've got to admit that morality is relative. But if you do believe that, if you truly do believe that morality is relative, my question to you is, can you live it out?
I live by the harm principle. If an action causes harm and does not do more good, then it's immoral. This means that any action, in and of itself, is not moral, but the outcomes are what matter on the moral basis. By definition, this means that my morality is relative, and I do live that out on a day-by-day basis. I try not to harm others, and only if that action will cause more good opposed to the harm it will cause.
Can you live it out if a man wants to abuse your child, where there's a place where there's no government, no society, no rules, no regulations? What are you going to appeal to?
Abusing a child harms them. I don't think I need to explain that further. Now, if I had no authority to turn to, I would still think it's wrong. I just wouldn't have anybody to help me stop it. Just because you believe there's an authority doesn't mean said authority exists. That is why most civilizations have a system of justice, because when we don't have anything outside ourselves to turn to, we need to work together for protection.
But the other reason why I believe that atheists have zilch foundation for morality is because they might say, well, yes, we can have things such as moral absolutes. We can say things are absolutely wrong. But how can you?
Just because it can be said doesn't mean it's true. I don't believe in moral absolutes. There are actions that are in general considered wrong, but depending on the outcome can be justified. The standard, stealing a loaf of bread for a starving family, comes to mind.
I stole a loaf of bread. My sister's child was close to death. We were starving.
Or you're going to say about altruism through evolution. But really, can you really say that? Let me give you an example. I want you to imagine you're walking down a country path next to a river and you see a man drowning. What do? Do you jump in to save that man? Well, I think the majority of you would. I think you would try and save that man. And at least if you did not save that man, you would feel guilty for not doing so. So how did that trait get passed down through natural selection? Because those people who were self-sacrificing and tried to save that man would be less likely to survive and pass on their gene.
If I saw a man drowning, yes, I like to think I would do what I could to save them. And that does have an evolutionary advantage. We are a social species. We do much better working with others than on our own. A society that will risk their life for others will prosper over one where everyone looks out only for themselves. That's why we have evolved empathy. Groups that are made of individuals that empathize with the struggles of others will thrive.
I want to ask you the question, why is our universe so finely tuned? Now I want you to imagine we're walking down this beach here. You and me are walking down this beach here and we see in the sand some ripples. And you say to me, hey Joe, how did those ripples get in the sand? And I say to you, oh, it was the waves that did it. And you say, okay, yeah, I can take that. That's cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, I want you to imagine we walk a little bit further down the beach. And you see in the sand it says, John loves Mary. And you say, hey Joe, how did that get into the sand? And I say to you, oh yeah, it was the waves again. The waves did that. Are you going to believe me? You're not, are you? Because you know that nature cannot create something so finely tuned in such a small area, can it?
Yes, a message in a known language written out by wave patterns is unlikely. If random events created a decipherable message that had nothing to do with those events, we would assume an intelligence did it. But there is nothing in the universe that is analogous to a message like that caused by what we assume to be random forces that cannot be explained by physical processes.
Let me ask you this, atheists. Why is it that boiling point is always 100 C? It never goes higher, it's always 100 C. It never fluctuates, it never goes down.
I assume you mean, why is water's boiling point 100 degrees centigrade? Other substances have different boiling points. Water boils at 100 degrees centigrade because when Anders Celsius was working out his measurements, he started 0 at the point where ice had enough energy to melt and made 100 the point where it had enough energy to boil. He chose those points where the matter changed for his measurements. Just because something has a property does not mean that an intelligence was the one that put that property into place. So, 100 centigrade was simply records the point where water molecules have the energy needed to boil.
Why is it that this sea here will have a limit and it'll never ever go past that? Why does the sea never go past its limit?
Sadly, with the average increase in global temperature, the sea is going past its old limit. I don't really have anything funny to say about that. Water levels are rising and looks like they're going to continue to go up.
Why is it that if we were just 1 inch closer, just 1 inch closer to our sun, that we would completely fry?
1 inch? Are you serious? Between perihelion and aphelion, there's a difference of about 5 million kilometers of how close the Earth gets to the Sun. Roughly speaking, that's about kilometers to meters, meters to centimeters, divided by 2.54, just under 200 billion inches that we comfortably vary in our distance between the Earth and the Sun every year. And that's still firmly within the circumstellar habitable, or Goldilocks zone. 1 inch is barely noticeable.
Why is it? Why is our universe so finely tuned if we just came from accident? If we just came from nature's randomness?
The universe is not finely tuned for us. We're actually the reverse. We are finely tuned to the tiny sliver of the universe, Earth, that our ancestors existed on. Through evolution, we've become tuned to thrive in the world around us. We are not lucky to find ourselves in a world tuned for us. So, this is the first batch of these questions finished. I'll be answering more next time. Hope to see you all then.